Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of your breakfast show on leadership television inside Nigeria. My name is Unifred Ogbobo, your host on the program. On today's show, we are looking at what the papers are saying. Of course, we have some selected national newspapers right here on our menu this Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, July 22, 2025. All too soon, the month is almost running to a close. So on today's show, we have papers like Leadership. We have Daily Sun, we have The Guardian, we have Daily Times, Vanguard, and the Punch newspapers, all for review this Tuesday. Let's get right to it with Leadership newspaper, Nigeria's most influential newspaper. Leadership's leading story this Tuesday says mixed reactions as economy hits 372.822 trillion naira after rebasing. We'll take that again. Mixed reactions as economy hits 372.822 trillion naira after rebasing. The story is on page 4 of Leadership newspaper. And just like some of the papers we have on our lineup today, that's also some of the papers' leading story on today's newspaper review. Of course, Leadership also has the protest pictures of police retirees nationwide yesterday over pension scheme. This story runs on page 7 of Leadership, and we have the pictures from Abuja, Kwara, Edo, of the retirees yesterday. It took place nationwide. Still on Leadership newspaper, we have Mohammed Babangida denies rejecting Tinubu's appointment. Of course, it was a trending story yesterday with a letter, obviously purported letter of him declining the appointment of chairman of Bank of Agriculture, appointed by President Bola Tinubu. However, he came shortly to counter that allegation that in no time, there was no way he rejected that appointment. And of course, he has already accepted and appreciated the president for that gesture. The story continues on page 7 of Leadership. Mohammed Babangida denies rejecting Tinubu's appointment. PDP says we'll rebuild with next meeting. Osimhen joins Galatasaray in 75 million euro deal, and that story is on page 30 of Leadership. Emir Sanusi seeks stiffer punishment for wife beaters. So wife beaters beware. Emir Sanusi seeks stiffer punishment for you. And that story is on page 6 of Leadership. There seems no end to the Labour Party crisis as Baba Ahmed reconciles with Abure faction. Of course, Baba Dati Ahmed was presidential running mate or candidate to Peter Obi in the 2023 presidential election under the Labour Party. Now he has reconciled with Abure faction, and some other sections of the report have it that he is the presidential candidate for Labour Party in 2027. However, this story continues on page 7 of Leadership. Labour Party crisis, Baba Ahmed reconciles with Abure faction. While Peter Obi, on the other hand, is on the faction with Nenadi Usman. We move to the business boss of Leadership on the cover today, where we have business stories. And today's business story is on illegal levies by non-state actors push up prices. As Nigerian battles high food inflation and rising cost of living, economic analysts and business owners are raising alarm over the growing role of non-state actors in driving up prices through illegal taxation and extortion of traders, transporters, and small business operators. Across major commercial cities such as Lagos, Onitsha, Kano, and Port Harcourt, traders and transporters are being subjected to multiple unauthorized levies by touts, local gangs, and self-styled union enforcers operating outside the framework of government regulation. Experts say these unlawful toys are silently but significantly contributing to rising commodity prices. Excerpts from the business story on the business boss of Leadership newspaper cover today. Illegal levies by non-state actors push up prices. And of course, the Governors Forum under the aegis of NGF had already agreed and in a meeting that they were going to reduce remove these illegal checkpoints on the highways. So we move towards the mindset of leadership and above Governor Rada in Abuja for treatment after accident involving convoy. Niger community raises 100 million naira from land rent to repair school clinic. That story runs on page 14 of leadership. Niger community raises 100 million naira from land rent to repair school clinic. And that concludes review of front headline stories on leadership. We move to the inside page where we have our stand. And today's stand is on visa restrictions on Nigeria. Visa restrictions on Nigeria. Today's stand in leadership newspaper. It says Nigerians applying for visas to travel to countries like the United States of America, USA, United Kingdom, UK, Canada, and the United Arab Emirates, UAE, have been subjected to a range of restrictions. These countries are typically the preferred destinations for Nigerians seeking to study, do business, take holidays, or pursue other interests abroad. This coordinated squeeze on entry qualifications for Nigerians appears to signal a growing frustration with the preponderance of Nigerians thronging those countries. The latest actions came from the U.S. government, which called the validity of non-immigrant visas for Nigerians, including the popular B1, B2, F, and J categories, to only 3 months with a single entry. Unless reversed, most non-immigrant and non-diplomatic visas issued to Nigerian citizens will henceforth be single-entry visas with a 3-month validity period. As a newspaper, we acknowledge that sovereign countries have the prerogative to admit foreigners. However, countries that share good relations usually encourage cultural exchanges through citizens' travel to respective countries for various reasons. The authorities of the affected countries should collaborate more closely in designing a visa process that identifies genuine applicants. We urge the Nigerian authorities to constructively engage with these nations to be more considerate of Nigerians, especially students, in their visa requirements. These are excerpts today from Leadership Stand, Visa Restrictions on Nigeria. And for more, you also have to log into the website of Leadership. But before we leave Leadership, let's move to the back page of the paper where we have Tuesday column with Abdurrauf Aliyu. And today's column is on Muhammadu Buhari, 1942 to 2025. In quote from that celebration, commemoration of late President Muhammadu Buhari, former president, immediate past president of Nigeria. He says, so those who adored him, Muhammadu Buhari was the stoic soldier, the incorruptible disciplinarian who never wavered from his moral compass. Quote from today's column with Abdurrauf Aliyu, Muhammadu Buhari, 1942 to 2025. But before we leave the back page, let's visit Ghana Must Go. The Emir of Daura says Tinubu is our choice for 2027. And of course, Ghana Must Go replied him, speak for yourself. It's so funny. It's on that note we conclude today's review of Leadership Newspaper. Don't forget to visit the website for continuation of these headline stories and of course also for breaking news stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is the Daily Sun. Daily Sun says Labour Party crisis deepens. Obi's running mate joins forces with Abure faction, declares presidential ambition. Leading story today on Daily Sun newspaper. Labour Party crisis deepens. Obi's running mate joins forces with Abure faction, declares presidential ambition. Just like Leadership, we have these pictures of protesters, retired police retirees, retired police personnel, yesterday in a nationwide protest over pension scheme. And that is a picture we still have on Daily Sun newspaper. Governors, media leaders, others grace Lateef Jakunde lecture in Lagos. Again, ex-Kogi Governor Bello's request for foreign medical trip fails. Federal government raises the alarm over Nigeria's forest depletion. VP says over 90% lost. Deforestation threatens economic stability. Payout 35,000 wage award arrears. Civil servants tell federal government. And that story runs on page 25 of the paper. We move to the masthead of Daily Sun. Retired officers defy rain. Storm police headquarters. NANS orders over poor salary, pension. IGP meets protesters, denies opposing exit from pension scheme. That story continues, although it runs on the page, the cover of Daily Sun, but it continues on page 8 of Daily Sun. Perhaps we can take some excerpts from that second leading story. Retired personnel of the Nigerian Police Force yesterday stormed major cities across the country and the Federal Capital Territory, FCT Abuja, in their numbers to protest their continued existence on the Contributory Pension Scheme, CPS. The aggrieved retired security operatives under the aegis of National Association of Retired Police Officers Contributory Pension Scheme stormed both the Louis Edet House headquarters of the Nigerian Police Force and the National Assembly, carrying various placards chanting "Pay police a living wage and proper pensions." The group brandished placards showing their demands for both serving and retired police officers. Some of the placards read, "Decent salaries now, end police slavery, pensions for police officers, and dignity for those in uniform." The protesters who were prevented from entering the force headquarters were, however, given police escorts to prevent any breakdown of law and order as they proceeded to the National Assembly, where they occupied the entrance gate. The demonstrators, mostly elderly former police personnel, chanted solidarity songs as they stood in the rain, insisting that their welfare package should be paid. These are excerpts from the second leading story on Daily Sun this Tuesday. Retired officers defy rain. Storm police headquarters. NANS orders over poor salary, pension. And we took some excerpts from that leading story. Last story gracing the cover of Daily Sun is just by the masthead. It says, Assembly by election, complaints, petitions, stray APC primaries in 12 states. And that concludes the review of front headline stories in Daily Sun newspaper cover today, Tuesday, July 22, 2025. For more, log into the website of Daily Sun. We move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard, just like Daily Sun, has similar story as its main cover. It says retired policemen protest poor pension welfare nationwide. Retired policemen protest poor pension welfare nationwide. Storm NAS seek exit from CPS. Protest also in Edo, Plateau, Kwara, Taraba, Cross River, as IG denies opposing exit from CPS. US to Nigerians will prosecute banned visa fraudsters from entry. Warns Americans in Nigeria of looming visa overstay penalties. That story continues on page 8 of Vanguard newspaper. And incidentally, that visa story is the stand today in Leadership newspaper. US to Nigerians will prosecute banned visa fraudsters from entry. Terror financing, 730 cases successfully prosecuted. Major General Laka. Terror financing, 730 cases successfully prosecuted. Citizenship, Kemi Badenoch displayed utter ignorance of law. Falana. Tinubu's presidency is bad market, coming from PDP. And above the masthead of Vanguard, Nigeria's economy grows by 3.13% in first quarter 2025. And just like papers before it, Vanguard has pictures of police protesters yesterday nationwide on the cover. That also concludes the review of front headline stories on Vanguard this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of Vanguard newspaper. We move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian says electricity tariff imbalance triggers new subsidy inefficiency debates. That story is on page 6 of The Guardian. Electricity tariff imbalance triggers new subsidy inefficiency debates. We have the pictures of the protests that took place nationwide yesterday on the cover of The Guardian beneath the leading story. IGP pledges reform as retired officers protest poor pension under contributory scheme. IGP pledges reform as retired officers protest poor pension under contributory scheme. Confusion in Labour Party as Dati walks tightrope amid factions coalition moves. Confusion in Labour Party as Dati walks tightrope amid factions coalition moves. Falana Sani fought Kemi Badenoch over citizenship claim. Nigeria's GDP hits 373 trillion naira, remains fourth biggest in Africa after rebasing. That also is the leading story on leadership this Tuesday. States FCT's unutilized 250 billion naira education grants worry you beg. It's also a leading story, main leading story in one of the papers we have on our lineup. Unfortunately, time will not permit us to take that paper. States FCT's unutilized 250 billion naira education grants worry you beg. Court orders for forfeiture of 222,729 million dollars recovered from Chinese nationals. Court orders for forfeiture of $222,729 recovered from Chinese nationals. That story runs on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. Before we go, we move towards the masthead of the Guardian. Shettima laments depletion of 90% forest cover. 2027, PDP declares Tinubu bad product, convenes 101 first NEC meeting. Awujale's burial, there will be grave repercussions, says Ogun traditional chief. Awujale's burial, there will be grave repercussions, says Ogun traditional chief. That story continues on page 7 of the Guardian. Of course, it's also a trending story. The IFA, Council of IFAs, has also threatened to take legal action over the burial of Awujale for not towing the traditional line. It's on this note we conclude review of front headline stories on The Guardian this Tuesday. For more, log in to the website of The Guardian. Let's move to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is the Punch newspaper. Punch has similar story with that of The Guardian, still on electricity generation. It says Electricity Act fallout, Genco's discourse rage as states begin tariff cuts. Electricity Act fallout, Genco's discourse rage as states begin tariff cuts. Enugu Defense Power Bill slash as Ondo Plateau others join tariff cuts. Genco's threatened shutdown. The rider to that leading story on the Punch newspaper. We also have pictures of the police retirees protest yesterday. Pension revolt, IG vows action after ex-police officers nationwide protest. Services sector fuels 3.13% economic growth. Talking about the rebasing from the NBS yesterday. And that story is on page 38 of the Punch. Gunmen shoot 2 Nigerians dead in South Africa. It runs on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. Gunmen shoot 2 Nigerians dead in South Africa. 16 states delay teachers' retirement age reform. And that story continues on page 34. But the online version also has Awujale, Ogun government prepares for legal battle with IFA Council. That takes us to the stories just beside the masthead of the Punch. Businesses expect rate cut as MPC reconvenes today. Businesses expect rate cut as Monetary Policy Council reconvenes today. That is CBN. Nigeria now spends half its revenue on debt, presidential panel. 2027, fresh Labour Party crisis as Obi rejects Dati Abure peace deal. NAS showdown, Natasha faces police blockade today. These are the stories gracing the cover of the Punch this Tuesday. For more, log into the website of the Punch newspaper for continuation of these headline stories. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup this Tuesday, and that is the Daily Times. The Daily Times leading stories on the retired police officers crash protest yesterday in Abuja. It says retired police officers protest in Abuja threatening to disrupt NAS. The story has pictures underneath that story. We also have the picture of Omoyele Sowore, who joined the protest yesterday in demand for better welfare packages. Underneath that, we have 2027, only PDP can defeat Tinubu MPS. Reps investigate 25 insurance companies over alleged fraud. Crack in Labour Party widens as Obi's VP identifies with Abure faction. Imo Diaspora Group lost Tinubu's approval of Southeast Investment Company. That story is on page 5 of Daily Times. Crack in Labour Party widens as Obi's VP identifies with Abure faction. Imo Diaspora Group lost Tinubu's approval of Southeast Investment Company. That story is on page 5 of Daily Times. Port Harcourt International Airport generates over 21.4 billion naira in 4 years. ICE PPP expansion, that is public-private partnership. We move to the masthead of Daily Times. Alleged 80.2 billion naira fraud. Again, court denies Yaya Bello overseas medical trip. That story continues on page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper. And lastly, on the cover of Daily Times, Bauchi governor to deploy drones to fight bandits. That story continues on page 5 of the Daily Times. It's on this note we conclude review of front headline stories on the Daily Times newspaper this Tuesday. For more, log in to the website of Daily Times, www.dailytimesng.com. Well, viewers, it's also on that note we conclude today's Inside Nigeria, your breakfast show on Leadership Television. For more, log in to the website of Leadership to read more on the story. Now, of course, also breaking news stories, www.leadership.ng. My name is Winifred Obebo. I look forward to having you same time, same station for another fresh edition of your breakfast show tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Be part of our brand. Leadership for God and country.